Everybody, what's up? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School. I was talking to somebody today, a reporter that I respect out of New York, and we were talking about a segment that we were thinking about doing pretty soon on the N word and whether or not, how I feel about rappers using the N word or young people using the N word or, just people, who are not black using the N word. And I told her, I said, my opinion on the N word's kind of evolved over time. I grew up as a kid just thinking that using the N word wasn't a big deal. It slips out. I think a lot of us. I think there are a lot of people who still might use it every now and then in extreme circumstances. And I said, even though I can't sit here and pretend like I haven't used it myself on a lot of occasions, I said my opinion has evolved in this very simple sense. Um, Number one, there are probably better words that we can use to describe each other and to describe ourselves than the word nigga, right? There are so many, there are millions of words you can use. Why do you pick that one? I mean, why? Why do you go out of your way to fight for the ability to use a word that has a very derogatory historical context? I mean, why? Why not use the word saw or the word paper? Why are you using the word nigger? There's a reason you use the word nigger. Somebody taught you to use that word to describe yourself because in America you've been told for 400 years that you ain't nothing but a nigger, right? And so that was one of the first thoughts that I had about that. And then there's sort of this really interesting Pandora's box that kind of opens when you talk about the N word. And the Pandora's box is this: you get to this point where you might have a rapper or two using the word. You get some white kids who listen to hip hop artists who feel comfortable using the word because they heard the rapper say it, so they think it makes them cool. You see white kids calling each other nigga because they all listen to the same rappers, and then you'll have Latino people using the word nigga because they're people of color like us, and then you'll have white people who feel like they're cool and they'll use the word nigga, and it gets real confusing. But then here's the thing. But then there's a police officer who arrests a black man and says, come on down to the jailhouse, my nigga, right? Or a white teacher who says, what's happening, my nigga? And then suddenly everybody screams racism. Everybody says, oh, that's an outrage. You're racist. What's wrong with you? Right? And so here's my problem, right? And I thought about this and I said, it's not a matter of telling people what to do or judging people for the language they use per se. But if we just sort of kneel down and give up and say, you know what? Rappers are using the word. These Jewish record labels are paying black rappers to call each other niggas, even though they would never. They're not gonna let you use that language toward other Jews. Now they're not gonna let you talk about Jewish people that way, but they'll let you talk about black people all day long, right? And talk about killing black people, all that stuff. But if we just say, oh, they're using the word, so who cares? It's not a big deal. If you put an A at the end, it's okay and it's all right. Well, if you do that, here's what happens though. If you do that, if you just let it go and say it's no big deal, well, then when that white person calls you a nigger, your ability to become outraged has been minimized because you've basically given the world a license to call you the N-word or some variant of the N-word. Now, we know instinctually that the context matters. We know that the enunciation, the N or the A, or the R or the A at the end, that matters. We know that, just when it's said and who says it, all those things come into play. There's no question about that. Context, the commentator, the enunciation, the way it's spelled, all these things do matter. We know those things matter. But the question is, do we really want to make it that complicated? And do we really want to work that hard to defend the word that was used, right before black people were hung from trees, where hundreds of white people would gather around and watch a black man get his balls cut off? Is that really what we want to fight for? And I think that's the bottom line. I mean, would a black person, why would any black person in their right mind fight hard, fight overtime, all the things we could be fighting for, all the words we could use, all the things we could be fighting for? Why would we fight for this? And I think that's really where my position is. I'm not going to necessarily make a big deal of it. When I hear people say it, I know what they mean. I mean, we all know how to put things into context. But I think at the same time, I think the bottom line at the end of the day is maybe there are better ways to describe each other than to use the N word. And so it's funny because sometimes, I'm 44, and so sometimes you might have a 15-year-old who says, "Oh, you're old, you don't get it. It's not 1995 anymore. So why are you talking about this like it's a big deal?" Well, I would turn to that same 15-year-old and say, "Well, it's not 1995 anymore, but you're still imitating what rappers started doing back in 1995 by calling each other the N word. Maybe it's time for you to evolve also because you're part of a different generation that has the opportunity to think more highly of yourself than perhaps we did in the 80s and the 90s." So that's my 2 cents. I say, the N word. Let's if you want to use it, that's fine, but put it at the bottom of your priority list, not at the top. Never be in a rush to call yourself a nigga. That just don't even make any sense. All right, well, that's it. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.